Hello, and welcome to Connecting Jewish Grandparents, the Grand Plan podcast. I am thrilled that you are here this week, and I hope you have joined me in the past and will continue to join me. To make sure you do that, please follow or subscribe or whatever the podcast player or YouTube that you're watching this through says for you to best follow me. And share this, where each week we come together to look at the weekly Torah portion and how it relates to you as a grandparent. People have said, like, oh, do you have to be religious to be a part of Grand Plan? No, of course not. No one is checking on your religiosity. You have to want to be here to get something out of it. And connecting to the Torah, I like to think of the weekly Torah portion as the great international book club that almost always, if you saw last week's episode, you'll know why it's not true right now. But almost always, the same chapter is being read by Jews all around the world and then being discussed in whatever is the native tongue. It's not just, oh, I know Hebrew. So I hope that you're here to appreciate what the Torah said thousands of years ago and what it says to you right now in this life stage. Okay, so if you are outside of Israel, this week's Torah portion is Beha'alotecha, and a lot of different things happen within the Torah portion. And I want to hyper focus on the very end. It is the 12th perek of Bamidbar, if you want to be looking at it like that, or the 7th aliyah, or just, I'm going to tell you what happens, right? The Torah explains that Miriam and Aaron, right? Miriam and Aaron are talking about their brother Moshe. And maybe you've heard this section mentioned before because it has become the archetype for understanding what happens if you speak lashon hara, evil tongue, slander, gossip, negativity. And spoiler alert, what is going to happen to Miriam from this conversation is that she is going to get tzara'at, that is the skin condition that is associated with speaking badly about others. Now, lashon hara, speaking badly about others, there probably is a full podcast series on the intricacies and why you shouldn't and the consequences and how it relates to our daily life. Right? The Chofetz Chaim wrote extensively about it, and one could podcast extensively about it. But that's not what I'm going to do here today. Because, well, yes, everybody should learn from Lashon Hara, and where we're going to go today is not just relevant to grandparents. In fact, today's episode is going to be a bit different because usually I'm talking about grandparents as they relate to grandchildren. But buckle up because today we're going in a different direction. Today we're going to focus in on you, the grandparent, in relationship to, it could be your adult children as siblings to one another. It could be your adult children and their spouses. It could be you and your spouse, you and your own siblings, or you and your fellow in-laws. There's not a word for it in English, to the best of my knowledge. In Hebrew, they're called machatanim. There's a Yiddish version, machatanisters, something like that. In Ladino, it's consuegra. English doesn't have one, but the other grandparents to your grandchildren are your child-in-law's parents, are your consuegros machatanim. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent to go where we're going today in Parsha Beha'alotecha. We said we've got Miriam and Aaron speaking about Moshe. But if we pull that back a step, we want to look at Miriam and Moshe and Aaron as we've met them before. Okay, this is the first place, and I think only place, where we see all three siblings line up together. But until we see all three of them together, they have been independently and in pairs, the human heroes of the Torah through Sefer Shemot and Vayikra, each Exodus and Leviticus, and they are the human heroes. They're doing everything. If we go back to the very beginning of the book of Shemot, we have Miriam taking care of her baby brother Moshe. We have her potentially as one of the midwives delivering the babies. She is one of the heroes from the beginning. Then we have Aaron by Moshe's side. They approach Paro together, Pharaoh. Then we have Miriam and Moshe leading the people together in song and dance at the Exodus. Then we have Aaron and Moshe building and running the Mishkan together, holy services run by them. So we've seen these partnership pairs, but this is the first time that we see Miriam and Aaron form a partnership without Moshe. And it does not go very well. Miriam and Aaron are discussing Moshe. And look, I do not believe, and I don't think anyone believes, that they were doing this to speak badly. Maybe they were concerned. Maybe they were confused. They were wondering about the choices he was making. They were wondering about his marriage. As I said, maybe they were worried, as siblings can and should be. But whatever their motivation was, they were talking about their brother instead of to their brother. And then we get to this very dramatic moment, very powerful and really to me very meaningful moment. Vayomer Hashem, and Hashem says, Hitom el Moshe, suddenly to Moshe, ve'el Aaron, and to Aaron, ve'el Miriam. Se'u shloshetchem. The three of you come to the Ohel Moed, to the tent of meeting. And so the three of them went. This suddenly, Moshe and Aaron and Miriam, usually don't say the ands in the middle, right? It would just be like Hashem said to Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam. Hitom, suddenly, you and you and you, family meeting right now in my tent. That's really what I see the Almighty doing in this moment. None of them alone, all three of you together immediately. And again, we have the Almighty creator of the world. And yet, right, that's never happened to me. It's never happened to you. But it struck me as to how familiar this feels. How relatable this moment is. That you're talking to somebody because you care about them. In your family, it could happen with anybody, but what we're talking about families here. We speak about one another because we care. A parent worries about an adult child. A grandparent worries about their child-in-law, the spouse of their child. Siblings compare notes about one another's relationships and professions and the lifestyle that they live. Spouses discuss family tensions behind closed doors. And these conversations usually, like really almost always, come from a place of concern, not cruelty. But there is always a danger when we spend too much time talking about someone, about them, but not with them. We start to make some assumptions. The people we know best are often the people we stop seeing most clearly. We justify it because they're my brother. Like, I know them, he's my brother. And that can be the greatest danger. Being in a family together does not exempt you from respect. It is the opposite. A family requires greater respect for one another. The Torah outlines the halachot as far as honoring your parents. And then it sometimes goes to honoring older siblings and older family members. But a mutual respect is crucial. We often are careful with our professional colleagues and our neighbors and even our acquaintances get more respect than the people in our own family because we justify it. We think, oh, but they know I love them because we're family. And I'm only concerned because I know them so well. And so here we have the greatest leadership family in the Torah together, that all the siblings work. And it shows us it doesn't always. It gives us clarity that love does not give us permission to speak carelessly. Love obligates us to speak carefully. Now, I laid out what happens at the beginning, and maybe you already know this story. But what I found interesting in the text, which just in the reading, the rhythm of it, is the repetition of the word na, nun aleph. And it can mean immediately, now, but it mostly means please. And so the repetition of the word please is important to note because when things get off track, as they have here, of siblings speaking about each other, about their marriage, about their relationship, da 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 da, Aaron says, please. And Moshe pleads, Elna Rafana la. Hashem, please. Heal her, please. So we've gone from people speaking about each other to people speaking respectfully to each other. I've explained what happens here, but I haven't used the word that I think is most, the word that you can keep with you the most, and that is triangulation, right? It's used more in social work, in modern psychology, but really just basically in systems. All right? Triangulation means, well, they're just like there's the 3 points of the triangle. What happens when two sides come together? What happens to the third point of the triangle? So we've just watched what happened with Miriam and Aaron on two sides of the triangle pulling together against the third point of Moshe. And whenever you have that triangulation of the two together where they think they're supporting the third point of the triangle, they're often actually damaging the third point of the triangle. What one hoped or believed was going to be for the good becomes to the detriment. So within your own family system, you need to keep your eyes on where that triangulation could be happening, maybe as a one-off occurrence, like described in this week's Torah portion, but really it can be much more frequent than that. That becomes the go-to relationship that you have, that you're really bonded with your, I'm trying to come up with the best example, but that you and your offspring are discussing very often the other child, their sibling, or their spouse without bringing them into the conversation. Or you're discussing your spouse with your child instead of now immediately, all three of us are going to come together and speak face to face. Whenever it's two thinking they're helping the third, they are almost always hurting them until you are speaking all three face to face. There's a part of me that's like, but what about when you're staging an intervention, that you two have come together to say, like, we're seeing this problem in the family, and you talk about it and you talk about it. Well, yes, intervention is really important. But the longer that you two are sitting together talking about number three, the longer you're delaying that repair of intervention and just sitting around contemplating the situation. But the intervention starts as soon as you bring that third party into the situation and saying, now the three of us can work together to solve the problem. And I think this triangulation is the basis of where we get into Lashon Hara, thinking that we're doing the right thing, but not because we're too busy discussing, contemplating, thinking how, no, I'm going to help that person. Triangulation. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. I feel like I could describe it a lot more and give specifics, but think about it for yourself. Where you and another adult member of your family are talking about a third member of the family believing you're doing a greater good, and sit and think, am I really? Does it make me right? And then the really the place where it's not what's happening in Torah, and I hope it's not happening with you, but you are really bonded to that other member and pushing the third person out. Again, with the name of no, I'm just worried about them. I'm just helping them. But you're having whole long conversations about all the problems that third member of the family has. So as I said, this week was not really about grandparenting. It's really about triangulation and being like Hashem and being able to step in and saying, no, it's not two against one. It has got to be all three of you right now together, face to face. This is how we solve dangerous triangulation. I said at the beginning, please share this now that you've heard it all. Like, who do you see that you are in this situation with? How can you work to do it better? Share this episode with them. Or if you think people are talking about you, and share it with them. But again, you don't feel like, oh, I'm being the victim. Like, this is just putting out here. This is what Torah says. And we, as grandparents, can do better when we. Speaking of grandparents doing better, today is like the last day to sign up for becoming the grandparent you want to be. And I've just discovered recently that maybe I haven't described it well because many people that I spoke to about it have said, like, no, but I don't, my grandchildren are too old, or it's not really about your grandchildren. It's really about you. And looking at the original grandparents in the Torah to help you self-actualize your identity of who it is you are right now and who you want to be as a grandparent and what tools the Torah gives you to really be your best, like the best grandparent you can be through Torah lenses. And then once you've done all of that and you're like, this is who I want to be and this is how I'm going to do it, then you put that into action your own way. But the age of your grandchild doesn't really matter because it could be that you're not yet a grandparent, but one of your children is pregnant and it's going to happen soon. And then you're preparing for the process. But if your grandchildren are all in university, you don't stop being their grandparent. And now is really the time to figure out, like, oh, now I'm not just a grandparent because they live in my child's house. Now, even more, I have to figure out who I am as their grandparent now that they are kind of their own entity. So there's not an age where it doesn't work. Torah wisdom, you, modern psychology, all of it coming together and becoming the grandparent you want to be. So if you're on the fence about it, I hope I've explained it a little more that you're able to say, yes, this is what I'm looking for right now. Or you know a friend who would be appropriate for. So please send it along and have a wonderful week. Looking out for triangulation and being equally kind to everybody, not pairing up and pushing out.